sector, that hole over there, I'm not going to pick anything up, but that hole over there, that was a refugee center. And all you had to do if you wanted to leave East Germany was go to West Berlin, go there, and go to the guy behind the counter, and then you just go to it was generally an American or a French soldier, and you just say, do you still do the free plane ticket thing? Does that still work? They'd be like, of course, where do you want to go? And then let's say you want to go to Munich, they might say, I don't know, like, Munich is in 4 days, but if you want to go to Freiburg, you can go to Freiburg tomorrow. Black Forest, great cake?
Yeah.
No? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, and then let's say you really wanted to go to Munich, they would tell you that's perfect, great beer, you're going to love it. Here's your plane ticket, have a seat, and then 4 days later, they would fly you out of West Berlin, over the Iron Curtain, down into West Germany, and then the minute you landed, you got a new passport, you got a job, you got an apartment, you got money. I mean, that was, that's where all the money and the work was. And so millions of young people did that, and they were flown out into the West, and that's when the East Germans panicked. And the only solution they could come up with was to build a wall. And that's why they built the Berlin Wall, because a lot of university-educated people, skilled workers, were leaving East Germany through Berlin and being flown out into West Germany. Okay, so when they built the wall, they built it around West Berlin. And the wall was actually, and when we say that it was built overnight, we mean Saturday night people went to bed, there was no wall. Sunday morning, there was 155 kilometers of barbed wire. They had so many people working for them. And what they had is that each person was responsible for calling 5 people, who then called 5 people, who then 5 called people. So within an hour, you could have tens of thousands of people working, like awake, and then they just went to the closest, I don't know, police station or whatnot. They gave them their kit, a little bit of barbed wire, some pickets, and a hammer, and then they just told them, just go in and get,
120 kilometers?
155.
Wow.
It's 100 miles in 4 hours.
If they were being flown out, how did the wall help?
I'm sorry?
If they were being flown out by plane anyway.
Because they couldn't get into West Berlin anymore. That was where, when we say that people were trying to go over the Berlin Wall, they were trying to go over the wall into West Berlin to then be flown out into West Germany. The minute you reached this, you were free. And so in the first couple of days, because it was just barbed wire, right? In the first couple of days, people would take off their jacket, they'd put it on the barbed wire, and they'd be like, cha-chow! And they went into West Berlin. But then very quickly, they started shooting these people. And that's when people started getting killed. And yeah, so when we say that people were killed, they were trying to get into West Berlin. Okay? And at first it was just barbed wire on the ground, then it was a wall sort of, with cement blocks, and then cement strips. Like, we're going to see those later on. What we're going to see is actually the 4th sort of generation of wall. And if you look at where I drew it, it's around West Berlin. It doesn't actually touch American, British, or French territory. And that's why the Allies couldn't take it down. It's not that they didn't do anything, it's that they couldn't do it. It wasn't their territory. It was built on East German soil, all of it. And it was being kept by, or sort of maintained by the East Germans, not by the Soviets. The Soviets had nothing to do with this. They thought this was a ridiculous idea. They thought, are you guys insane? I mean, everyone already hates us. This is the stupidest idea you've ever had. You're going to have a wall. How's that going to work? People are going to go underneath it. People are going to be crying. It's like perfect propaganda for the West. You guys are dumb. So it took a year for the East German government to convince the Soviets to allow them to do this. Okay? So does this make a bit more sense? Because I used to think West Berlin was in West Germany. I used to think the divide went like this. I've obviously not looked at a map, but now we know. Yeah? Questions about this? Okay, one last thing, and then we'll go. If you lived, let's say you're one of those young people who left East Germany, you went to West Germany, but your family is still in East Germany. Let's say you want to meet up with them, they would go to East Berlin, you would go to West Berlin, and then you would be allowed to go to East Berlin for about 24 hours, once every 6 or 7 years. Imagine how, like, emotionally how difficult this was. And if you did go, you could also drive. And so there were checkpoints. At the Iron Curtain, there was a checkpoint. That was checkpoint A, checkpoint Alpha. Then when you got to West Berlin, when you entered West Berlin, checkpoint B. What's B for?
Berlin.
Bravo. That's it.
Ah.
And then when you go from West Berlin
Charlie.
Checkpoint Charlie. It's the NATO alphabet, right? The military alphabet, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. So the first, second, and third. And originally there were 81 checkpoints, then it was brought down to 8. So Bravo and Charlie were 2 of those 8 checkpoints over here. The other ones had sort of street or bridge names.
Where was the government of the federal? The
Where-
government.
Yeah?
Bonn.
In the Berlin it was?
No, no. What was the capital of West Germany?
Bonn?
Bonn. Yeah.
Today?
And today the capital of
Berlin.
Germany is Berlin. They've moved. There are still a lot of ministries. A lot of government jobs are still in Bonn, because otherwise they would have just killed that city's economy, right? So
Why did they choose
decided
Bonn?
to move it. I'm not sure. I think strategically it was easier to access. It also hadn't been completely destroyed during the war. There were like Nuremberg was also sort of, that's why they had the Nuremberg trials in Nuremberg, is that the courthouse was still standing and there was also a prison attached to the courthouse.